Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries costs £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up, as expected last night, said no to a national inquiry on rape gangs. Andy Burnham, though, he's broken ranks and said there should be one. Charlie Peters joins me with the latest. And let's talk about the economy.
Every pound we spend on debt interest is money we cannot spend on the public's priorities.
Hear, hear, but there's a flaw in that plan because the cost of our borrowing has now gone right through the roof. So what's going to happen next then? Tax rises, spending cuts, interest rate rises? What on earth do you think we do to fix our problems? And the Foreign Secretary here is to launch the world's first sanctions regime to snare people smugglers. Will it make a blind bit of difference though when it comes to channel crossings or not? And UK, I shouldn't laugh, but the UK should take back ISIS members in Syria. That's been one suggestion by the USA's new terror chief. Really? Sometimes I can't help myself but laugh because so much that goes on seems absolutely ludicrous. Anyway, my panel tonight to get stuck into it all: Alex Dean, the writer and political commentator, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister. Also, I can tell you someone that's not been given an easy ride today: Steve Reid. The farmers were having none of him. But before we get stuck into it all, let's cross live for the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Mayor of Los Angeles has given an update as wildfires continue to rage across the region. Karen Bass said the historic winds and extensive droughts created the perfect storm, but dropping winds mean firefighters are now able to tackle the fires from the air, and authorities are hopeful the tide is turning. The Hollywood Hills blaze, described as the most destructive in LA's history, has claimed 5 lives, forced 179,000 people to evacuate and reduced Sunset Boulevard to rubble. Meanwhile, officials are warning about looting after some 20 people were arrested for taking part. Staying in the US, President Joe Biden has delivered the eulogy for the late former US President Jimmy Carter at his state funeral following his death last month at the age of 100. President Biden, who has declared a national day of mourning, spoke in front of all 4 living former presidents, saying Jimmy Carter made a powerful difference. Carter, a Nobel Prize winner and the 39th US president, is being remembered for his leadership and humanitarian work. Now, back in the UK, Andy Burnham has split with Sir Keir Starmer to call for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Speaking to a local radio station, the Labour mayor of Greater Manchester said he believed there was a case for a limited national inquiry that draws on local reviews into historic child sexual exploitation. It's after Labour MPs rejected a Conservative push for a new national inquiry by 364 votes to 111. This government has removed the highest number of illegal migrants from the UK in more than half a decade, according to the Home Office. 16,400 immigration offenders and foreign criminals have been returned in a crackdown on abuse of the immigration system. It comes amid a new sanction regime introduced to target people smuggling gangs and boost border security as part of the government's plan for change. Over 36,000 people crossed the Channel in 2024, fewer than in 2022, but still a major concern for ministers. Sir Keir Starmer says he won't stop claiming Liz Truss crashed the economy despite legal threats from her team. Truss's lawyers have issued a cease and desist letter calling the claim false and blaming it for damaging her re-election prospects. The dispute centres on her 2022 mini-budget, which caused market turmoil, though her team points to a report showing economic growth afterwards.
Rachel Reeves has pushed this country to the brink of economic crisis through high taxes, high regulation, and disastrous net zero policies. When I tried to fix these problems back in 2022, I was undermined by the economic establishment, and I was forced to reverse the policies before they were even implemented. I was blamed for the LDI crisis, which the Bank of England has subsequently admitted was their fault.
Downing Street says the Prime Minister stands by his remarks, urging critics to ask the public about the impact on mortgages and inflation. Now, Everton have sacked their manager, Sean Dyche, with immediate effect. In a statement, the Liverpool-based football club said under-18s head coach and former player Leighton Baines and club captain Seamus Coleman will take charge of first-team affairs on an interim basis. It's the second sacking of a Premier League coach in under a week after Lopetegui left West Ham yesterday. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
Thank you very much for that, Sophia. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight alongside me my panel, Alex Dean, the writer and political commentator, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister. Good evening, gents, to both of you. Good evening. And a Happy New Year to you both as well. And you know the drill on this programme. It is about you guys at home. Get in touch with me. Let me know what's on your mind tonight. All the usual ways. You can email me. I'm old-fashioned. gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to Twitter or X. You can get me there. Or, of course, you can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Before we start, there's so much doom and gloom in the world, everyone, isn't there? So should we just start by saying happy birthday? Is it your birthday at home? And if it is, you share it with Princess Catherine. She turns 43 years old today. I like that. I thought I would just put it in because it's, you know, she's had a tough year, hasn't she? Yes. So happy birthday from all of us.
Happy returns.
Do you want to sing happy birthday, Bill? To her?
Maybe. I can't remember being 43, so it must be good for her.
Do you know, I was only kidding, but do you know what I like best about Bill Rammell? I didn't expect him to sing Happy Birthday, but I like the fact you contemplated it.
You thought about it.
He really seriously considered, do I need to sing Happy Birthday on national television? So I appreciate the contemplation that you gave to that. I wouldn't have made you sing, don't
The last time I was with you was the Christmas Eve show, where I had that silly hat on,
yes.
And you turned to me and you said, you really don't like wearing this hat, do you?
He didn't like it. If you saw that Christmas Eve special, every couple of minutes he kept trying, can I take it off now? Can I take it off now? And then, no, you can't take it off, quite frankly. Everyone's got people like that in their family, haven't you, though, over Christmas? You pull your crackers. There's always one that won't put that piece of paper on the head, isn't they? Everyone's got one of those on the family, not me. I'd stick about 3 of them on if I could get away with it. But anyway, happy birthday from all of us here at GB News. I bet she's watching right now, so happy birthday to you. Look, though, big news. We've been discussing this for many, many days. These rape gangs, that's what I've decided to call them now. I'm not going to have any what we call straps at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to stop them saying grooming gangs now on this programme. I'm not having it anymore. We're going to call them what they are, the rape gangs. Well, of course, there was that big vert, wasn't there, last night in the House of Commons. We all knew which way it was going to go. But anyway, 364 to 111. That was how it ended up. So basically, no to a national inquiry currently. Let's cross live there to our reporter. He's done a fantastic job, this man, everybody. Charlie Peters, there he is, in Rotherham. Charlie, you know, you've been talking to victims for a long time now. How has this news gone down about the vert?
Well, Michelle, I'd just like to start with some breaking news because the former Labour MP Khalid Mahmood has told GB News in the last 15 minutes that he is backing calls for a national public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Mr Mahmood was an MP in Birmingham from 2001 to 2024, and his intervention comes after Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor, said this afternoon that he would also be backing calls for a limited national inquiry into the scandal. So two Labour figures now hitting back at the government's position after last night they voted down that Tory amendment that would introduce a public inquiry into the grooming, abuse, rape gang scandal across this country. Mr Mahmood told me that the reason why he was backing this call is because these victims, he said, have been annihilated, not just by the perpetrators, but by the system. He said that we needed to rapidly set up a terms of reference to look into this crisis nationwide so that the perpetrators, but also the authorities who failed the survivors, could be held accountable. Now, this morning I spoke to a survivor, Elizabeth. She's just reacted very positively to that news, by the way, and she told me her reaction to the news last night in the House of Commons when so many MPs stood up to vote down that call for a national inquiry into this scandal. Here's what she said.
It's just disgusting. You know, people want answers. We should be able to have them. Everybody else has had these national inquiries. Why not us?
Do you think that police officers and council workers around the country who had failed children in this national scandal will be relieved by that vote last night?
Absolutely, it's a dream come true. This is what they've been wanting. You know, not one of them have come out and said we're guilty of this or even apologised, you know. At the end of the day, I've always said it and I'll keep on saying it. The only reason Rotherham was sorry was because they got caught. Otherwise, this would have never come out.
Well, now there are hopes among the survivors in the country, also ones I've been speaking to in Rotherham today, that more people will be caught out if there is a further investigation launched on the back of this intervention, first by the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, but now, as we can reveal, Khalid Mahmood, the former Labour MP in Birmingham who lost his seat in the election in July, has also backed calls for a national public inquiry into this abuse gang scandal.
Charlie Peters, fantastic and fascinating update there. Thank you very much for not just that, but all the work that you've been doing on this. I know, I read the GB News inbox. I know it is appreciated by so many people. So for now, thank you very much for that. And I'm not being facetious, by the way, when I say my next comment, but I've really found it a good thing to hear as many northern accents across the media as I've heard in the last few days. You know, and I'm no doubt in my mind that one of the reasons that the media and people like that have not really been very quick to involve lots of these victims and survivors is, if you ask me, because these girls are very working class individuals. I think there's a lot of classism that is still very prominent in this country, I can tell you that. You know, where are you on this situation? The outcome of that vote last night, Alex, it wasn't a surprise. We knew it was going to go the way that it did.
Yeah. There is going to be an inquiry into grooming gangs, child rape gangs, and the longer the Prime Minister takes to realise that reality and to give way to it, the worse it'll be for him. This is, I'm afraid, it's a situation where he just doesn't seem to get politics. Now, I'm a Conservative. We just had someone who doesn't get politics hand us our collective electoral backside. So, you know, what does it say about us, I suppose? But it is obvious, given the mood in this country, there will eventually be an inquiry. And he has made made, in my view, just a completely needless, massive, unforced error in sending his MPs to vote against it. And how are these... We used to do this all the time. We used to send MPs, demand they voted in a particular way or defend a particular line, and then government would U-turn and leave them high and dry. Each Labour MP who voted against having an inquiry is in the end going to have to go back to their electorate and explain to them why. And it's going to be indefensible because the government's going to have one.
I know, but we covered this last night, obviously, and I can't even tell you how many viewers got in touch, right? And they were quite angry. And what they were quite angry with was, for example, Kemi Badenoch, because what they were saying is that the tacking on of this as an amendment, if you like, to this wellbeing bill for children made it relatively impossible for many people to vote against it because they didn't want to be responsible for whether it's the free breakfast or school uniform caps or whatever it was. So a lot of my viewers last night felt that there was a lot of politicking going on by the Tories.
The reason I don't accept that, I mean, there's plenty of things in 14 years in government the Conservative Party could and should have done differently about this issue. No one is clear of blame on it. But last night, I don't think that is a fair point because there's only so many things you can do in opposition to raise an issue. You can't initiate legislation. You can't bring your own bill in the way that the government does. And Bill was in opposition and understands that there are only so many things you can do. So bringing an amendment like this, to me, is the least harmful way to raise what is obviously a significant matter of national import if the government isn't going to do it themselves. And for whatever reason, this government ain't. And
you just touched on it there in terms of politicking. I can tell you now the inbox has been filled with fury from many people again, saying that the Tories, they are playing politics with this. So many people at home will be sitting shouting at their screens now that the Tories never pushed for this national inquiry.
Yeah, I think that's fair to a degree. I also think it's very interesting what has brought... Some of it's because of sentencing remarks that have come to light, and those sentencing remarks in the reports are absolutely brutal reading for anyone. And the second, and we should be open and admit this, is that Elon Musk and co, and I think the Telegraph today say he ripped the plaster, ripped the bandage off of this. He pulled the blindfold away from us and over this national issue. And I'm very glad that it has the salience now that it didn't do in the past. It's very, very good that we're discussing it in the way that we are.
Bill Rammell?
Well, firstly, and you're right to call them rape gangs, grooming gangs, is one of the most appalling abuses we've seen in British society, and it needs to be stamped out, and people need to be held to account, and it needs to be tackled. But forgive me, and I don't put you in this camp, Alex, but there is immense hypocrisy from the Tory party. They specifically refused a public inquiry when they were in government. They have resisted this. You know, numerous journalists have gone through the Hansard record. Not once in 3 years have they raised any concerns about grooming gangs or rape gangs. Come to the substance of should we have a public inquiry. There have been numerous inquiries. There was a major national inquiry led by Alexis Jay involving 7,000 witnesses costing £100 million. The priority is to get on with implementing those recommendations.
That's a bit disingenuous because if it's the report that I think we're talking about, which I think it is, that reported back in 2022.
No, that was the second one. The first, Alexis Jay was 2015, I think.
Yeah, but
she's done 2 reports.
Yeah, but so the latest findings was 2022. This covered 6 towns and cities. It wasn't just about these rape gangs. It was about broad spectrum child abuse. So it's not the same thing, is it?
Well, but hold on. That's where you need to put it into context. What's happened with the grooming gangs is abhorrent. It's only 5% of the child sexual abuse cases in this country. So you need a comprehensive approach. The key recommendation that she has come up with is a statutory duty to report. She's talking about a child protection agency and a series of other recommendations. You know, she finally reported in 2022, 20 recommendations, not one of them implemented. The priority is to get on, that's her view, and it's still, from all I can ascertain, the majority view amongst victims, that they want action, not a further public inquiry that might take a further 7 years to deliver results and cost hundreds of millions of
nearly
pounds.
A decade, does it? Look, Alex wants to come back in. There's a lot more to be said, and we'll continue saying it after the break. I do just need to say that a government spokesman has issued the following statement. No child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount that we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we're working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which is the J report that we've just been talking about a second ago. We'll continue this conversation after the break. So much more to discuss as well. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Mr. Motivator, he joins us now. Mr. Motivator, a very happy new year to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There you are, bright and early. So how are things? How can we all kick ourselves into shape?
By the end of January, most people have thrown their New Year's resolution out the window. I think what's important is that we make a change for life, and we set ourselves small goals, and as we achieve those goals, then we reward ourselves. So in other words, you want to run 10K, you don't immediately get up and go run 10K, do you? You run between 2 lampposts and walk between 20. If you're not into running, don't choose running. If you're into dancing, that's great. If you're into any kind of movement, that is the way to keep yourself active, healthy, and also maintain your independence.
So, Derek, is the point that you keep it manageable and small enough that it's achievable?
Why don't we just find 4 exercises that you do for 1 minute each exercise, and you do that 4 times a day? Achievable, isn't it? That's only 4 minutes of exercise. And I guarantee at the end of the day, you'd have done 12 minutes, which is like your daily dozen. So there's your goal. I want to do a daily dozen of exercise lasting a minute each, right? And the first thing you could be doing is getting up from your chair, right? The moment you stand up, you incorporate so many muscles in your legs, right, that you're going to feel good, yes? So,
right, go on then. Get up off your chair, Adam. Show me how it's done.
Easy, come on.
Easy, yeah. Look at
no
that.
hand. The next thing I want you to do is to reach up real high. And if you bring it down, up
I'll
and
do
down.
that one.
Yeah.
For a minute, palms facing.
Oh, for a minute?
You're not flying a minute. That's better.
There we go.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you. Till 7 o'clock, Alex Dean and Bill Rammell remains alongside us. Richie, it's your birthday today. Happy birthday, Bill. Do you want to sing to him?
Happy birthday, Richie.
No, you see, I think everyone keeps telling me it's your birthdays. By the end of the programme, we're going to get to the point where he's going to be singing. I promise. If you just tuned in, you don't even know what I'm talking about. Stick with me. It's my mission tonight to get this fella singing. I don't know if that'll do wonders for the ratings or not. Time will tell. I don't know what his vocal cords are like in that regard. But anyway,
That's why I'm not singing.
Well, Tom, we've still got about half an hour or so. I'll get it out of you. Look, let's talk, shall we, about David Lammy. He's been talking tough today when it comes to sanction regimes. Take a listen. Oh, it's not ready. I've got a second to kill. I was going to try and kill that second with Bill Rammell singing, but I won't. I don't think, actually, that I will. In a second, I'm going to show you the clip about David Lammy. He was talking very tough. You know what? The clip's not working. I ain't got all day. We'll just move on, because at the end of the day, what he's saying is he's going to tackle implement a new sanctions regime. He reckons it's going to tackle the smuggling gangs and immigration. It's ready now, but you know what? I don't think I need David. I think I've explained it all to you myself. Is this what's going to work then, Bill Rammell?
It's going to be one element. I mean, firstly, there is the beginning of progress. We've seen a 30% increase in deportations. The number of boat crossings on what are called red days, which are the easiest for crossings, are down by about 37%. There have been a series of coordinated police and criminal investigations across the continent, scores of people arrested. We're tackling the problem upstream in countries like Iraq and Kurdistan. But this is an additional element which can help. Going after the masterminds with sanctions, publicising their names so that they can then it can be clear to financial organisations and other companies that trading with them is illegal. And I think it can be a contributor to help.
But you don't think these fellas, I mean, I assume that they're mainly fellas, you don't think they're operating above board anyway in their daily business, do you? Well, in order to sanction them in the first place?
If you look at sanctions against people in Russia, for example, it has an impact. It's not a panacea. It doesn't solve every problem, but it can make a contribution. And I think we should push it forward.
Yeah, it's been the direction of travel in our criminal law enforcement for some time. It's not entirely novel. You know, the Proceeds of Crime Act, unexplained wealth orders and so forth have been the direction of travel. I'm a bit of an antique now, but when I was at the bar, we did Proceeds of Crime Act work, and people's assets were being seized and frozen like this. You'd have to explain where you got something from. I dare say, and it is mostly blokes, most of these gentlemen will find it rather difficult to explain where they'd got their money from, if they are indeed trafficking in human misery. It may play a part in the fix. I've got some people don't like this sort of legislation, but I've got no objection in principle, because of course we should go after the gangs. But we have to try and affect the demand side, which is so richly on display, as well as the supply side, and that's to do with boosting deterrence. The UK needs to be seen as less of a soft touch, whether it be for access to benefits once you're here or getting here in the first place. And secondly, people need to believe they are going to get sent back or sent somewhere else, like, oh, I don't know, Rwanda. That's the sort of thing that you need to do to try and deter on the supply side. So if it is part of the solution, and I'm open to it being part of the solution, it's only part of one side of the solution, the supply side.
David Lammy, and I'll quote, he says, "I'm proud to announce that the UK is set to be the first country in the world to develop legislation for a new sanctions regime specifically tackling irregular migration and organised crime." I mean, this isn't really like the most revolutionary idea I've ever heard in my life. So how come no one else has had this idea and tried to implement something similar in the past? Well,
there's nothing wrong with being an innovator, and we're urging other countries to follow this path. But I thought the other thing that David said today that was really interesting...
But what I'm trying to get at, I think, is it that we've just got this almost genius as a foreign secretary that's got a mind unlike anyone else? Or is it because other countries might have considered it and actually thought, you know what, it's not going to work ever?
I don't think there's evidence that is the case. We will follow some examples. So, for example, Italy, that's been very successful in deterring illegal immigration by cooperating with countries in Africa, bolstering their border security. We're now following that example. In other areas like this, we may lead the way. But the other thing that I think David said today that was really good and positive and interesting was that there is nothing whatsoever progressive about being soft on illegal gangs, and I think that needs to be said loudly and clearly.
That's absolutely spot on, and it's long been a blind spot for the political left that they have given succour to people who trade in human suffering and misery in this way. I'm delighted to hear it. And what I'd say to people on my side, whether you like him or not, whether you like the result of the last election or not, they are now our government, and this is one of the most pressing issues of the day. We should support our Foreign Secretary when he seeks to stop people smugglers. We can think they get a lot of things wrong, but on this sort of thing, More power to them.
Yes, there you go. We got there in the end. Optimism, entrepreneurialism. Who'd have thought then that would have come from David Lammy? Are you optimistic? Do you think it'll happen? Do you think it'll make a blind bit of difference? I can tell you what, I agree with Alex. I hope so. I really hope it does. Do you? Coming up after the break, I'll tell you that's not really optimistic, and that is the absolute state of the UK economy. It's not looking good. Let's discuss in 2.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight. And where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands, and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday. But there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long queues continue heading south down the M1 through South Yorkshire. The inside lane on that 4-lane stretch of the motorway is closed off from junction 34 to 33 towards Sheffield and Rotherham after a lorry overturned. Recovery work continues. In Cheshire on the M56, 1 lane stays closed westbound from junction 11 to 12 towards Runcorn because of flooding, and big problems in Warwickshire on the M42 southbound tonight. 1 lane stays shut from the M40 towards the Redditch turn off junction 3 towards Worcestershire at the scene of a crash. Queues back towards 4 at Shirley. And on the Surrey stretch of the M25, that's still not recovered anti-clockwise after a car broke down in the roadworks just before the A3 at Wisley. Queues back to the Staines bypass, and major disruption continues to both arrivals and departures at Manchester Airport because of the snowy conditions. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Well, hello there. I'm Michelle Dewberry. Until 7 o'clock tonight here on Dewbs & Co. Alongside me, my panel, Alex Dean, the writer and political commentator, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister. Good evening to each of you. If you're just joining the programme tonight, you're very welcome indeed. We've just been discussing grooming gangs and this whole kind of conversation, debate about whether or not there will be a national inquiry on this issue. So many people getting in touch. Andy's saying, why did the people responsible for protecting children not act immediately, irrespective of any government? And this is the point you raise, Andy. So many of you are getting in touch about this, saying that what you want to see as a result of this inquiry is that those people that should have been protecting these children, who is it that's been complicit in these cover-ups? You want to see them that are actually being held to account. You can tell me whether or not you think it's going to happen there or not. Graham has got in touch saying, Michelle, you've just been telling us David Lammy wants to sanction the smugglers. You ask an interesting question. You say, if David Lammy knows who these people are to try and sanction them, why can't he just track them down and arrest them and get them behind bars? I hear you, Graham. Look, one of the key things we need to talk about today is the economy. An urgent question asked about this. Take a listen to this. I found it very interesting from our Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride.
Every pound we spend on debt interest is money we cannot spend on the public's priorities. The government's decision to let rip on borrowing means that their own tax rises will end up being swallowed up by the higher borrowing costs and at no benefit to the British people. Far from this government laying the foundations for a stronger economy, the Chancellor is squandering the endeavours of millions of hard-working people up and down our country who are now having to pay the price for yet another socialist government taxing and spending their way into trouble.
You know, the cost of some of this borrowing is at an almost 30-year high. What's gone wrong? What's going on?
Well, unlike the Liz Truss crashing of the economy, which was down to reckless decisions...
Careful, she's issued a cease and desist letter. We'll come on to that one in a few minutes.
I'll happily take on any legal action which she wants to take. But this is largely driven by global events, and particularly in the United States, where inflation and growth is higher than expected. That is driving up interest rates. Also, the prospect of tariffs and the deficit under Trump are driving some of this as well. What we need to do is hold our nerve. Panic responses would be the last thing that we need. Boosting public services in the short term, boosting growth, particularly through house building, is a key element of the way forward. And you can overstate this. I was really struck by the Financial Times survey of 600 economists recently, saying that the gloom about the UK economy is overdone, that there are prospects for growth, better than within the European Union. And just today, we've seen that the Christmas growth figures from Tesco's and Marks and Spencer's are way up on last year. So, you know, this is a short-term challenge. We need to ride it through.
There's lots I want to say back to that, as I know my viewers will want to say back to that as well. But first, Alex Dean.
Well, it's time to say it, I'm afraid. Rachel Reeves has crashed the economy. And the proof of that is obvious. The first, you've already referred to, that the borrowing costs on 30-year gilts now, which is to say borrowing on bonds that we are borrowing to pass on debt to children yet to be born, is at the highest level it's been since Tony Blair's first year in government in 1998. The
10-year gilts, the highest since the financial...
And look at the 10 years of growth that came after that.
That's correct. And so you think it's OK? You think it's OK for borrowing costs to be
No, I
this
don't
high?
think it's OK, but I think, as I said, this has been majorly driven by the United States
extraordinarily flippant.
and global affairs.
I listened carefully to what you said.
Yeah.
Now, you're very fair on lots of things, but it comes to this, I'm afraid, you're blind, because you are willing to mouth absolute obedience to this government and to say all manner of positive things about it, including that it's down to what's happening in the States. The United States economy is outperforming us on any basic metrics: GDP, growth, inflation control, international investment, currency performance. It's extraordinary to be able to think you can claim that the United States is down to it. Indeed, this government inherited the fastest growing economy in the G7, and look what they have done with it. A second data point that's worth bearing in mind for people thinking about this: we are now paying more to service our debt than the Greek economy. Bill says it's fine. Bill says it doesn't matter.
No, I didn't say that, Alex. And look, if you say I'm never critical of this government, you've not listened to me on this news channel. Where it's right, I do criticise, but I think the major driver of the borrowing costs that we are facing are global. We need to see that through. We need to follow through on the legislative changes to drive economic growth, and it's the best way forward.
There may, for argument's sake, one can concede the merits of the argument that there are international influences making a difference to the British economy. But the hay that you and your party made over the Liz Truss episode, which we're going to discuss later, is extraordinary when compared to what's happening today. The hypocrisy of Labour, with debt servicing levels higher now than they were under Liz Truss at any point. Higher now, claiming that everything's fine, when the Treasury had to intervene in the markets today and say that things were going to be OK.
The Treasury did not intervene in the markets today.
That is not...
They put out a press release.
That is a Treasury intervention.
It's not... come on, a Treasury intervention is a technical term where you invest money into the markets. That did not happen.
If you want to put it that way, when's the last time the Treasury had to reassure the markets in that way?
The Treasury responds on a weekly basis about what's happening within the economy.
Do they ever have to say, don't worry about our borrowing costs, the fears that people are currently facing, given the remarkable spikes in the cost of our borrowing? OK, the pound slump today, very bad, but nothing, you know, currencies fluctuate. That's the main thing is what we're now
about 22
paying on our
cents
debt.
up on what it was under Liz Truss.
Can I just, if you're just tuning in and you think to yourself, oh, I don't even know what everyone's on about, it's all going over my head, let me just explain something really simply. We've all just had all of the budget. We know what happened there, 40 billion of tax rises, which affect all of us in some way, shape or form. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, she gave herself wiggle room, let's call it that, headroom of about almost £10 billion. Now, Mel Stroud was explaining there, what happens is every pound that you spend essentially on servicing your debt means that is a pound that you've not got coming into the coffers. So what might happen, or what might need to happen next as a result of this, and this is which will affect each and every single one of us, potentially you'll need to look at tax rises. Potentially you might need to look at cutting public spending. There's another option where you can talk about dabbling with what people call the fiscal rules. But you just sit there, Bill, and you say, I think I'm paraphrasing what you said, but essentially hold your nerve, just hold your nerve. At some point, you're going to end up like those people in LA that are sitting there filming themselves in their house while these fires are coming up to their windows almost. Well, action is likely going to be needed, isn't it?
Well, let's take those points in turn, Michelle. Tax rises. The polling evidence shows by 2 to 1, people believe those tax rises were necessary rather than those who don't. We had to restore and stabilise the public finances and get investment into areas, particularly like the National Health Service. But I do think that this is a shortish-term challenge that we need to see through. We need to ensure that the measures that have been put in place, like a modern industrial strategy, like to drive growth, like the major house building programme,
yes, but,
once
Bill,
that starts
you're not going to knock up estates in 5 minutes, are you? So, I mean, what you...
The argument seems to be from the left that you can tax business without any ramifications. In the end, it's business that creates growth in this country, and it's business that creates jobs. And when you put the circa 25 billion increase on national insurance employer contribution is a flat tax on jobs. That's what it is. Per number of people you employ, we're going to tax you more on that basis. The ultimate obvious answer is the same when you put taxes up on cigarettes or on alcohol. Fewer people drink or smoke, you tax jobs more, fewer people are going to be employed. And the result is that basically every major employer in this country wrote to the government and said, look at what you're doing to the economy, think again, this is really going to harm our prospects. Business confidence is way down. It's far worse than anything that happened under Liz Truss. And the hypocrisy under a government, which Bill doesn't currently serve in, but the hypocrisy of a government that made hay about Liz Truss when they're doing 10 times worse to our economy is extraordinary.
Look, there's a whole host of right-wing economic commentators who are jumping in on this situation and wanting to prove for themselves that Labour is not working. I quoted that Financial Times survey, 600 economists, private sector investment up. The planning freedoms will boost economic growth. Prospects for business stronger than elsewhere in the European Union. This is not a doomsday scenario.
You can't point to the slowest growing economic area in the world with the EU and say we're doing better than them and say, well, that's everything's fine then.
And then, of course, you're trying to cherry... It's not the slowest growing area in the world.
What's slower than economic growth than the EU?
There's a whole host across the planet.
Name one. Name one area that's growing more slowly.
Latin America, for example.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
You are kidding. Look at what's happened in Argentina. Anyway, viewers will decide. I think you're wrong. But the point I was seeking to make is you're cherry-picking. Because, of course, planning reform is good in this country. I support that. But the collapse in business confidence, courtesy of Rachel Reeves' budget, is extraordinary. I want my country to do well. I don't want business to feel bad about that. I want people to invest in the United Kingdom. Labour government elected with a thumping, emphatic majority. I completely respect their mandate to govern. I respect their mandate to carry out what they think is in the best interest of this country. But my goodness, they're going about it the wrong way. And I just wish that they could have a little bit, be a little chastened given the market's reactions. They loved the market reaction over LDI and Liz Truss. Hang on, just let me finish. They loved the market reaction over LDI and Liz Truss. They made the most of it. They talked about it all the time. The reaction here is significantly worse, and they don't seem to be aware for a moment of their hypocrisy.
Just very quickly, Liz Truss, she's issued a cease and desist letter to Keir Starmer. Basically, I'm summarising this. It's very long. It's on your screen. It's relatively long. Long story short, she's saying, pack it in, saying that I crashed the economy. You're a former lawman. Is this a good move from her or not?
No. It is possible to be right about something and go about your perspective on it the wrong way. As a recovering lawyer, my general principle advice is don't go to law. And I think that if you're seeking to make a point that is becoming increasingly evident, which is that if you did get something wrong, you're nothing like as bad as the people who've come after you, you're better off having other people make the point for you rather than shouting about it yourself. In my view, Liz Truss would have been, and I've lots of respect for her, and I think that she's been very hard done by history. I think we'll be much kinder to her than we were as a country at the time. But I think she'd have been much better off not doing what she's done.
Bill?
Alex, has she gone mad? I mean, you know, this is the last thing that she needs to do for her reputation, and it's the last thing that your party needs in these circumstances. People know their mortgage rates went up. People know that interest rates went up. And the only way it was reversed was by a complete reversal of government policy and the sacking of the Chancellor and then the resignation of her as Prime Minister. And to take legal action, God help us, I mean, it's madness.
She has a real point about liability-driven investment not being adequately understood, including by the regulators at the time. But would I have done this?
Alex, the major reason she crashed the economy was that she
You're going to wind up with less yourself.
You can keep saying it. She dinged the wing mirror. Rachel Reeves showed you what crashing the economy is.
Unfunded tax cuts, and she committed institutional vandalism by sacking the permanent secretary at the Treasury and not having an OBR forecast. Both of which sent the markets into a tailspin.
Rachel Reeves showed you how to crash an economy. In retrospect, Liz Truss just took a patina off the veneer.
Well, there you go, from one controversial individual to another. After the break, I'll tell you who I want to talk about. Contain yourselves, everyone, when I say this name. Shamima Begum. Is it time for this country to take her back? I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because the terror boss, essentially, the counter-terrorism chief, about to be appointed in Donald Trump's cabinet, says yes, it is. Your thoughts?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies in southern and eastern Spain this weekend, but there will be a few showers heading into Portugal. Largely fine conditions across the Canaries. Lots of sunshine here. There are those showers heading into Portugal. Sunny in southern Spain and up towards Barcelona. Of course, for the Balearics as well. A few showers drifting across southern Italy. Warm in Rome for the time of year, but it will turn cooler here as well. A few showers across Croatia. Small chance of a shower or two in Cyprus on Saturday as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience. Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of plantation south. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do. And suddenly, sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana. Which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel. And again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up. Good. That. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy, and you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score. to death. But this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, Alex Dean, Bill Rammell, Till7. One of my viewers has got in touch on Twitter saying Bill Rammell says that almost 2-1 believes that increasing the taxes in the way they did in the budget was the right thing to do. He says, who did they survey? The Labour Party head office?
No, a national representative poll of ordinary people.
Oh, well, there you go. I've never been polled for anything in all my life, I've got to say. I don't know why. Anyway, look, I'll tell you someone else that was not having a good day today. Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, he has been speaking to farmers in Oxford. But listen to what else he had to listen to. Actors there lined up, honking their horns, but there was more. He also had to listen to this.
We're only farmers. Come on out and say hello.
What are you so ashamed of, Steve? Why are you so ashamed that you can't engage with farmers?
What about the importance of food, Steve Reid?
Steve! Steve! He ignored me as well. He certainly didn't address the farmers, I can tell you that. What do you make to all of this, though? Do you think the government will ever change their mind on that inheritance tax for farmers or not? Now, if you're a regular viewer for this programme, you'll remember on the Donald Trump election, we had those two American chaps on. Do you remember? Sebastian Gorka and Pablo. I can't remember Pablo's last name now. It all got a bit heated, didn't it? Well, anyway, one of those fellas, Sebastian Gorka, he's going to be responsible in Donald Trump's cabinet. Let me get his title right. The Senior Director for Counter-Terrorism. Well, he has been speaking, and he reckons that Britain must bring back UK members of the Islamic State that are held in Syria. What do you think to this, Alex Dean?
Well, I think they're either going to be... if they're going to prosecute someone, they're either prosecuted there or they're prosecuted here. And if there is a system which we're going to respect under the new regime, if people are being prosecuted there, then I might disagree with this man, because if the Syrians are going to have a system of war crimes or truth and reconciliation, whatever system they choose, and these people are going to be prosecuted there, then I might support that. But if not, and the question is, what do you do with people who have been, who are British citizens and nothing else? Then I'm open to the fact that we've got a responsibility because they're our problem. I've got no problem stripping the privilege of British citizenship from someone who wasn't British, came to this country, secured the privilege of being British, having requested it, and then breaks our laws and international laws. But someone who is British and nothing else and goes abroad and isn't going to face justice somewhere else, then I accept the fact that you've got to lift your share of the international burden from a failed state or a post-failed state environment. After all, these people have got to accept if the quid pro quo of being able to come back to the UK is you're going to be prosecuted, well, then you can come back or not, but on that basis.
Bill Rammell?
I think it's British security first. You know, we're talking about violent, extremist Islamists who are a threat to our country. They are in camps, they are policed in those camps, and I think that's where they should stay. And this pressure from the United States, you know, Joe Biden tried it in 2021. Rightly, the then Conservative government said, no, we're not taking them back. We have said that since we came to power, and I think we should hold that line. And I found some of Gorka's language, frankly, worrying and offensive.
Oh, Bill, grow up a little bit.
No, hold on. To paraphrase...
What is offending you?
When he effectively says, we are the world superpower, and if you want to remain friends and allies with us, you should do what you're told.
What's wrong with that?
I think that's the wrong way to conduct yourself.
Bill Rammell, you are not a child. Why would you be offended? You just said you found it offensive. Why would you be offended by someone saying, America is the world's superpower, and if you want to deal with us, you've got to get on with it? Why would that offend you?
Because it's not the way to treat your longest-standing international partner and ally. We need to work with the Americans. We don't work on the basis of bullying. And when you put that alongside...
But what's bullying about
Well, hold on.
that?
When you put that alongside the fact that it's been reported today that Elon Musk is talking with colleagues about plotting to unseat the British Prime Minister, I think we're into totally uncharted water with some people in the US administration.
I heard a rumour, says my fellow panellist, I heard a rumour that someone who's going to be, isn't even in post yet, an unpaid advisor to the US government may be thinking about something about our Prime Minister. I mean, really extraordinary.
It was reported with sources in the Times
today. Talking about checking, cherry-picking, the Gawker line that attracted my interest was, he said, the UK has a very special place in President Trump's heart, and we would all wish to see the special relationship fully re-established. Well, amen to that, or as our American colleagues and cousins say, amen to that.
So, Alex, you would welcome Shamima Begum back into this country?
I wouldn't welcome her. I said on the proviso she accepts she's likely to be prosecuted. I accept that we may have the responsibility. This is weird because it's reversed. Normally it's the left saying we've got a moral obligation to deal with our own troublemakers and the right saying let them rot. You say leave them in the camp. Well, what happens when the camp closes and where do you want them to go? Individuals rendered stateless, other than their citizenship of the United Kingdom, who, because of the collapse of the despotic and awful regime they went out to support, no longer have a place in Syria. Where would you like them to go, Bill, other than driving them into the sea?
Right. Once people commit and perpetrate horrendous crimes and are then overseas and not our legal responsibility, I say we have to protect our borders and we have to protect our people first.
If she can manage to find her way back to the United Kingdom, as a British citizen, what right do you have to refuse her?
She's no longer a British citizen. That citizenship has been stripped off her.
You think people should be able to strip someone who is not a citizen of any other country?
That happened under your government.
Yeah, I think it was wrong. I'm able to say that. I don't know about you. I think you should stripping someone who has no citizenship of any other country so that they're rendering them stateless is wrong.
Well, there you go.
Depends on the circumstances, and I don't agree with that.
I can summarise the inbox massively. Almost all of you are saying that you don't want Shamima Begum to be welcomed back into the country. But if she was sent to prison, though, tried and sent to prison, would that change your mind or not? David says, can you tell this fella that if he's that concerned about her, he could offer her American citizenship? And Alistair says, Michelle, can I just say I've got cheese more mature than Bill Rammell. Oh, you're a harsh man. But what I love you too. What I will say, everybody, is I do think everyone needs to grow up a little bit and stop whining about being offended left, right and centre. We're going to be in an environment where I'm going to need to put a safe space in this environment. I'll have to get you a little corner with some beanbags and some meditation music.
I'm a champion of robust and open debate, but the way that some people in the US administration are conducting themselves is completely at odds with the historic way we conduct relations. I'm going to get the safe space
ready for you, which means it's time for me to go. I'll get the bean bags and we'll sort it all out for next time. But for now, gents, thank you for your time. Thank you to each and every one of you at home. Have a good night. Night-night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight, and where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands, and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday, but there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.